This week, we're diving into the requirements phase specifically. And requirements are kind of an odd behavior, kind of an odd thing that we're going to do inside of there. Why do we need to write down what we want? Isn't it obvious? I mean, if somebody said, build me this thing, then build it, right? Well, the first thing that requirements often do is they're going to need to capture specifically software's role in the application. You want to be able to bind and bound software to a very specific set of functionalities. So there's people doing things in the business enterprise. There might be hardware doing things in the enterprise. There might be other applications running if you're talking about smartphones and stuff. But what is your specific software trying to do? And by writing it down, we can capture what the scope of everything we have is, and then search for anything that might be missing or need to refine in more detail. By writing it down, we can see other people's understanding, because normally you're translating ideas from one person's head to another, and capturing them is a way of being able to refine that understanding. Most importantly, though, it's going to be used to assure we meet the needs that the project stakeholders are putting forth. Because that's the next big thing that we have is, where are we getting these requirements from? Well, often we do have a big system, and the software is part of the big system, and we can capture the requirements off of some other system description. They're going to be derived from some other choices or design elements. If we're building a hardware system, that makes a lot of sense. If I'm building an airplane and my job is to build the flight displays for the airplane, then my role is basically to do that piece of, you tell me what data I'm receiving, you tell me how I'm going to receive the data, how do I get that much? And then inevitably, the requirements come from people. If I don't have a hardware system to give me, that's the only place they come from. If I'm asking somebody, well, what's your website to sell pizza going to look like? I need a capture from the people, the project stakeholders. And each stakeholder might have different needs. They might have different desires of what's going on and what they want from their pizza website. So what we want to do is we're going to capture all the different needs of all the different stakeholders into what's called a specification. We want to capture what are all the different needs and all the different impacts that we're going to have towards the software that we're trying to build. If we don't do that, then we end up with some bad effects. We can affect our quality because we haven't built the thing the way it needs to be built with all the elements that it needs to be built. It's going to affect our schedule and our cost of our project because we're going to realize later on, hey, this isn't meeting my needs. I need to delay the implementation until this other thing is done. It's going to cost more money than we originally planned to do. And most importantly, our final result of a product needs to be accurate, needs to be complete. It needs to resemble what the business is going on. I can't have a pizza site selling pizzas for $1 if the cost of that pizza is way more than $1. That actually happened. There was a third-party software developer out of England who had set up a system in Amazon, and it was going to promise to set the best price, get the best profit off of things. It would raise the price that was in demand and lower the price to increase sales. Well, they had a software bug that sold a bunch of stuff for pennies on the dollar. And Amazon wasn't the one who was managing that. They weren't the one that set the price, and so there was nothing they could do about it. The stuff was sitting in Amazon's warehouse. It sold at a very low price and shipped at a very low price, and there's no way they could reclaim that. And so this middle piece of software was neither complete nor accurate, and end up having to either make it right with their clients or go out of business. So let's talk about these different types of stakeholders, because they're the key to the start of the software process. A stakeholder is basically anybody who has a role on a project that has some unique perspective, that has something new and some specific need on the project. So it's not, different person's names if they fulfill the same needs. I don't need to know every person from customer service. I don't need to know every person from testing. I just need to have some representation of people who generally fit those roles, especially in big companies. But by looking at those categories of people, I can better improve the likelihood that I'm going to have software that reflects their needs and is successful when it's implemented. So the most common need that's going to be expressed and probably overexpressed is management. They're the ones who have put forth the money. They're the ones in charge. They're the ones who's basically saying what they think the project's going to be successful on. They're the ones who you want to please. They're going to be double checking that the system meets the needs of the enterprise. They're going to be the ones who are looking at the benefits and the risks associated with doing this work whatsoever. It doesn't mean that what they're going to build is going to be useful. It just means that they're the ones who hold the purse strings and have a lot of political power in making the choice. So you have to understand their needs and capture them appropriately. Beyond that, there's going to be engineers who are involved, systems engineers or other technical needs, network engineers, security folks that have to ensure the software is consistent with the implementation of this in the system that's going to be there. Does it meet our security needs? Is it going to have too much network traffic? Is it going to store database appropriately or archive data appropriately? So there's a huge stake from a technical standpoint, which might have functional needs as well. Oh, we can't do this as a mobile app because we can't store this information on an unencrypted hard drive, for instance. So those stakes might come in and be counter to what some of the management desires are for the system. And so I need to verify that the interfaces are back and forth with these folks. I need to establish constraints by which the design is going to be successfully implemented. As the people who are building the software, they have a stake inside of this. They're going to take those requirements and allocate them out to how they're going to be built. If the requirements are built in an incorrect way, it's going to be difficult to go implement those in a design if they're fuzzy or wrong. I know one time I had an application where I asked for an additional requirement to get less work to be done. If we didn't have the requirement, then we're going to have to do a bunch of extra work. But if we added the new requirement, it's like, hey, this will make my life easier. And so there's a stake for these folks to have a view of the best way to implement this stuff, who might want to influence the way things get done because they're intelligent, vital people. Now, we don't want the people building the software to have too much undue influence. We want them to be with every other stakeholder portioned out and treated in balance. But these are people who have a good responsibility and a good feeling for what's going to be the solution. We want to get their opinions as part of it as well. So we also want to go to our testers and quality to understand the requirements, because they probably have less of a care of what the system's doing, though often your testers have a great understanding of where the system behaves and how a change to the requirements might inadvertently impact something you didn't anticipate. But they have to look at, can they test these requirements? Are they being written in a way that they know what you're talking about? They're the sanity check for, are they good requirements that can I create a test that makes sense, that aligns with the functionality you think you're going to go build? So understanding the criteria by which I'm going to test the system is a great way to understand, am I doing a good view of the system? And the one we've kind of missed inside of here is truly the customer and the end user. And I put that to last because so often we do that. So often we take management's input and we talk about all the different team members, but we forget who are the people who's going to be hands-on keyboard, hands-on mouse. What do they need for the system? They're not always the same. Often we build software and specify it for somebody else. So is the customer an external customer? Are they somebody who's never been to our site before that's being there for the first time? Is it some expert? Are we reselling our stuff through agents, and we need something that's very quick to use for these agents who are very, very familiar with our product, and they don't want a lot of extra typing to happen inside here. They're super users. Who are the people who's buying this software? Maybe we're selling to parents, so that it's children who are using our software, but we need to sell it to parents. So we need to have parental controls inside of there. We need to have security for the internet. We need to understand who are the people who's going to be hands-on, who are the people going to be purchasing it, not just the people who are controlling it. And then beyond that, as a society, we should have some input of how does this thing impact us all? We need to have, okay, what is this quality once it gets out there? If somebody hacks into our system, could they steal data? Is there some way somebody can maliciously use our software? Use it for, illicit communications or something along those lines we would never expect. And so the requirements provide the definition of what is correct. And by reviewing the requirements, I'm not saying go do focus groups on your requirements. I'm just saying, have somebody take the viewpoint of, is there anything we missed? Is there any other way we're not seeing there? Is there any regulatory stuff we need to worry about? Is there any laws that we need to consider? Is there any usability, accessibility? I mean, could a colorblind person use this site? Could a person without sight use this application fairly well? Could a person who can't hear be able to make good advantage of this? It's not necessarily that every software combines for everybody, but it's also asking the questions, seeing what you can do, or making plans accordingly. So that's the start to our requirements. This is where we just start gathering information. The next part, we want to start formalizing that, and we want to turn that into a document, and that's where we're going to go from here.